All right, hey everyone, welcome back to another deep dive here on Book to Read, episode 49.
Episode 49 already.
I know, crazy, right? And this week we're taking on Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
A classic.
Definitely a classic. I mean, have you ever felt like, what is the point of all this?
Oh yeah, I think we've all been there.
Frankl kind of gets that, and he wrote this book to help us figure it out.
Yeah, he did. And what makes this book so powerful, I think, is that it comes straight from Frankl's own experiences in the Nazi concentration camps during World War II.
Heavy stuff.
Super heavy. I mean, he was a psychiatrist even before the war.
Oh, wow.
And Man's Search for Meaning is this incredible journey from those pre-war studies all the way into like the deepest depths of human suffering, and then, amazingly, to a message of hope.
Okay, so how do you find hope in a concentration camp?
I know, right?
I mean, I start losing it if the Wi-Fi's down for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I feel that.
That's exactly what makes Frankl's observations, I think, so insightful.
You know, he noticed that the prisoners actually went through these very distinct psychological phases.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one is shock, right?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine being ripped from your life. Everything you know and love just gone, like that.
Gone, yeah.
And Frankl tells the story about a prisoner who was clinging to this scientific manuscript.
Hmm?
And he'd hidden it in his coat and everything, and then it was taken away during intake. They didn't care.
Oh, brutal.
It's that feeling of just utter devastation and disorientation.
So, what happens after the shock wears off? You just kind of, adjust to that level of awful?
You would think, right.
You'd think?
But not exactly.
Okay.
So Frankl observed that the second phase was apathy.
Apathy.
Okay. So all the constant trauma, the brutality, kind of leads to this emotional detachment.
Detachment, yeah.
It wasn't that they didn't care. It was more like a defense mechanism,
I guess, yeah. I mean, how could you possibly process that?
Right. And he even describes prisoners becoming indifferent to beatings. They were just focused on the bare minimum of survival.
I mean, at that point, it's just survival.
Yeah, remember that chilling story about the prisoner stealing another man's shoes? Right off his feet in the snow?
Ugh, yeah. That one was rough.
That one stuck with me.
It's talk about a dog-eat-dog world.
Right.
But I guess in those circumstances, it's kind of hard to, fault someone for doing whatever they had to do, right?
I mean, it raises a lot of complex ethical questions for sure.
Yeah.
And it gets even more complicated, I think, with the third phase, which is depersonalization.
Depersonalization.
Yeah. So prisoners began to view themselves and their own bodies as objects.
Oh, wow.
Separate from their true selves, almost like they were watching themselves in a movie.
So they're checked out on every level at that point.
Yeah, detached from the actual suffering.
Wow.
And yet, here's what's so fascinating.
What's that?
Frankl noticed that for many of them, the will to live, their sense of self, it often returned after liberation.
Oh, that's incredible.
It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, right?
Yeah.
The ability to hold on to some spark of hope, even in the face of unimaginable darkness.
Before we go any further, can I just ask, imagine reading this book and then being able to instantly talk about those crazy insights with other people.
Oh, yeah.
You would need a whole support group after this one.
I think there's an app for that.
You bet there is.
Really?
It's called Bookspace. It's basically like a digital book club that you can just keep in your pocket.
Oh, cool.
You can connect with other readers, debate ideas. You can even organize your to-be-read pile.
Oh, nice. I need that.
Right. Let me tell you, mine needs some serious organizing.
Yeah.
But more on that later. Seriously, check out Bookspace. It is a game changer.
All right. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
So back to Frankl.
Okay.
How did he go from all these observations in the camps to his theory of logotherapy?
Well, that's where things get really, really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
Logotherapy kind of flips the script on traditional therapy.
In what way?
Well, it's not about dwelling on the past or diving into your subconscious. It's about finding meaning in life, in the present.
Almost radical, considering the context, right?
Yeah.
But he argues that this will to meaning is a fundamental human drive.
The will to meaning?
Yeah. Even stronger than the pursuit of pleasure or power.
Wow.
That's what kept people going in the camps. That's what gave them a reason to, wake up each morning.
A reason to exist.
Yeah.
And this is where the concept of the existential vacuum comes in. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That feeling of emptiness.
Yeah, something is missing, even if you have everything else.
Yeah.
Frankl saw this as like a defining characteristic of modern life, I think he would say, you know.
That's interesting.
Without a why for your existence, people become susceptible to a how.
A how?
Yeah, from anyone offering answers, no matter how destructive those answers might be.
Whoa, okay, that is terrifyingly relevant to the world today.
Yeah.
So, like, what's the antidote?
Right.
How do we avoid falling into this existential vacuum?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what we're going to explore as we dive even deeper into man's search for meaning.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we've established that the existential vacuum is, like, not a good place to be.
Definitely not.
But how do we actually fill that void?
Yeah.
Does Frankl give us, like, a step-by-step guide to finding meaning?
Not a simple recipe, but he does outline 3 main avenues for discovering meaning.
3 avenues, okay.
And what's interesting is that these avenues are available to everyone, not just people who've endured extreme suffering, you know?
Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with avenue number 1.
All right, so the first one is through creating something.
Creating something.
This could be through your work, art, writing, even raising a family.
Go.
It's about bringing something new into the world, making a contribution that feels meaningful to you.
So it's not just about, like, consuming, it's about contributing, like leaving your mark on the world.
Exactly, even if it's a small one.
Okay, I like that.
And avenue number 2.
Yeah, what's that?
It's about experiencing something or encountering someone.
Yeah, okay.
This is where you open yourself up to the beauty and wonder of the world, to the richness of human connection.
This sounds a lot more fun than creating something. Sign me up for, like, travel, nature, falling in love, all the good stuff.
Exactly. Frankl believed that these experiences nourish our souls and kind of remind us of the meaning that exists beyond our own individual struggles.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like grand adventures.
Yeah.
It can be as simple as appreciating a beautiful sunset
Yeah.
or having a meaningful conversation with a friend.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Okay, that's something I can definitely get behind.
right.
But what about the tough stuff? Like, what about when life throws you a curveball?
Yeah.
You're dealing with, like, loss or pain that just feels unbearable.
Right. That brings us to the 3rd avenue, which is, I think, arguably the most challenging.
Oh.
Finding meaning in suffering.
Okay, this is where it gets real. Because, let's be honest, sometimes suffering just feels like suffering.
I know, it's understandable.
Yeah.
But Frankl's point is that even in situations that we can't change, we always have the freedom to choose our attitude.
Our attitude.
Yeah, we can choose to let suffering break us, or we can choose to find meaning in it, to use it as an opportunity for growth and transformation.
So it's not about pretending the pain isn't there.
No.
It's about finding a way to make it meaningful.
Exactly. And Frankl's own experience is like a testament to this. Remember how he described seeing a beautiful sunset while he was in the concentration camp?
Yeah, I remember that.
He recognized that even in that horrific environment, beauty still existed.
Wow.
And by choosing to focus on that beauty, he was able to transcend his suffering, even for a moment.
It's like finding a diamond in a pile of, well, you know.
Right.
But seriously, that's powerful stuff. So how do we actually put this into practice?
Right.
How do we find meaning in suffering when it feels like all hope is lost?
Well, that's where Frankl's concept of tragic optimism comes in.
Tragic optimism.
Yeah, it's not about denying the tragedy,
Yeah.
but choosing to find meaning and purpose even in the midst of it.
Okay, so it's not about, like, toxic positivity.
No.
Or pretending everything is fine. It's about finding a way to be optimistic in the face of tragedy.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Frankl would say it starts with accepting what we cannot change, focusing on what we can control, and finding meaning in our actions, even the small ones.
Okay.
He believed that by helping others, by focusing on something larger than ourselves, we can find a sense of purpose that transcends our own individual suffering.
You know, I was reading some comments on Bookspace about this very idea, and it seems like a lot of people struggle with it.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging concept. There are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But what I find so fascinating about Bookspace is that it allows people to share their own experiences and perspectives to offer support and guidance to one another.
Right, like one person shared how her experience with chronic pain had actually helped her to, like, appreciate the good days more fully
Oh, wow.
and to focus on what truly mattered.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are still glimmers of hope, moments of beauty and connection if we choose to see them.
Speaking of glimmers of hope, let's talk about logotherapy as, like, a practical approach to therapy.
Okay.
Does Frankl give us any tools or techniques for finding meaning?
He does. One of the core principles of logotherapy as a therapeutic approach is the emphasis on responsibility.
Responsibility, okay.
Frankl believed that we are fundamentally free to choose our attitude, even in the face of challenging circumstances.
So it's not just about feeling better, it's about empowering the patient to take control of their own lives.
Precisely. And one of the techniques he developed is called paradoxical intention.
Wait, isn't that the one where you tell the patient to do the very thing they're afraid of?
Yeah.
If you're terrified of public speaking, you intentionally try to mess up your speech.
Exactly. And it sounds counterintuitive.
Oh boy.
But by confronting your fear head on, you can often break the cycle of anxiety and gain a sense of control.
Okay, so it's like reverse psychology for the soul.
You could say that.
I like it.
Another important technique is dereflection.
Dereflection, now that's a new one.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So it's a technique used to address what Frankl called hyper-intention and hyper-reflection.
Okay.
Basically, it's when you're so focused on a problem that you end up making it worse.
Oh, like when you can't sleep because you're trying too hard to fall asleep.
Exactly.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Yeah, we've all been there.
All too well.
So dereflection aims to shift the patient's attention away from the problem
Right.
and towards something more meaningful, something that gives them a sense of purpose or joy. It could be a hobby, a relationship, or even just focusing on their work.
So it's like a mental reset button.
Yeah,
You stop obsessing over the problem
Yeah.
and focus on something else that gives you a sense of purpose.
exactly. And by doing so, you often find that the original problem starts to fade into the background.
I bet there are some great threads on Bookspace about dereflection.
Oh, for sure.
I can just imagine people sharing their tips and tricks for getting out of their own heads and finding that sense of flow.
Yeah, it's a great example of how a platform like Bookspace can foster a sense of community and support around these challenging concepts.
Totally. It's like having a therapist in your pocket, but way more fun.
I like it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
What are some of the other key takeaways from man's search for meaning?
Well, one that really stands out for me is the idea that happiness isn't something you pursue directly.
Huh?
Frankl believed that it ensues as a side effect of self-transcendence.
So you're saying that, the more we focus on ourselves, the less happy we'll be?
It's not quite that simple,
Okay.
but Frankl did believe that true happiness comes from looking beyond ourselves,
Yeah.
from focusing on something bigger than our own individual needs and desires.
Right.
Whether it's through creative expression, acts of service, or deepening our relationships with others.
Yeah.
When we connect with something larger than ourselves, happiness naturally follows.
It's like that saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Exactly. And that's something Frankl witnessed firsthand in the concentration camps.
Wow.
The prisoners who found meaning and purpose, even in those horrific circumstances, were often the ones who focused on helping others,
That's amazing.
on contributing to something larger than themselves.
So basically, finding meaning is not just a nice idea.
No.
It's essential for our mental and even our physical well-being.
That's a great way to put it. Frankl saw meaning as the key to unlocking human potential and resilience.
Mind blown, but you know what?
What?
I think my brain needs a little break from all this deep thinking.
I hear you. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, maybe it's time to unwind with some light reading and some mindless scrolling on Bookspace.
Now you're talking.
But seriously, folks, if you're looking for a way to connect with other readers, share your thoughts about books that make you think,
Yes.
or just make you laugh. Bookspace is the place to be.
I'm starting to see the appeal.
Right.
So where do we go from here? What's Frankl's final word on this whole search for meaning?
All right, so we've explored the depths of the existential vacuum, talked about Frankl's 3 avenues for finding meaning, and even, dipped our toes into logotherapy as a technique. So what's the big takeaway here? What's the message Frankl wants us to walk away with?
I think it's beautifully summed up in one of his core ideas. Meaning isn't something you just find lying around, like a lost $20 bill. It's revealed to you through your engagements with the world.
So instead of wandering around asking what's the meaning of life with a capital M, we should be asking,
What is life asking of me in this moment?
Ooh, I like that. That's a lot more actionable, right?
Right.
It's about paying attention, being present, and responding to the challenges, the opportunities that each day brings.
Precisely. It's in those specific situations and the choices we make, the actions we take, that meaning kind of unfolds.
I can't help but think back to everything Frankl went through. how could he possibly find meaning in a concentration camp? It just seems impossible.
It really does. You know,
Yeah.
it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, I think, wouldn't you say?
I would.
Even in the darkest of times, we have this incredible capacity to find light, to find meaning, and that meaning becomes like the fuel that keeps us going.
It's almost like a superpower.
It is.
Like being able to choose your attitude
Yeah.
to find meaning when it seems like there is nothing left.
Frankl believed that this capacity for meaning making is what sets us apart, what gives us dignity even when we're facing unimaginable suffering.
And he called this tragic optimism.
Right.
Holding on to hope, even in the face of like the tragic triad pain, guilt, and death.
Exactly. It's not about denying the darkness, but it's about finding a way to be optimistic, to live with intention and purpose, even when we're confronted with like the harsh realities of existence.
It strikes me that this idea of tragic optimism is so relevant today, you know,
Oh, yeah.
with everything going on in the world.
For sure.
It's so easy to just feel like overwhelmed by negativity and despair.
Absolutely. But Frankl's message is a reminder that we always have a choice.
Yeah.
We can choose to succumb to the darkness, or we can choose to find the light, even if it's just a flicker.
And you know what? I think Bookspace plays a role in that too.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, I think when you're engaging with a community of readers who are also grappling with these big questions, sharing their own experiences and perspectives, it creates this like sense of shared humanity.
Yeah, for sure.
A reminder that we're not alone in our struggles.
It's like a virtual support group for the soul.
Exactly. Plus, sometimes you just need a break from the heavy stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Bookspace is great for that too.
Okay, I like it.
You can find book recommendations, share funny quotes, connect with people who love the same books you do.
Sounds like a great way to find balance, to nourish both the mind and the spirit.
So, to wrap things up, what would you say is like the most important thing that listeners should take away from Man's Search for Meaning?
I think it's that empowering message that we all have the capacity to find meaning regardless of our circumstances.
Okay.
It's not something that's given to us, it's something we create through our choices and our actions.
And that meaning, even in the smallest moments, can make all the difference.
Absolutely. It can give us the strength to face challenges, the resilience to overcome setbacks, and the hope to keep moving forward even when the path ahead seems uncertain.
So well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this episode of Book to Read.
Wow.
Huge thanks to you for diving deep into Man's Search for Meaning with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
Don't forget to check out Bookspace using the link in our show notes. And remember, as Frankl would say, what will you choose?
Ooh, good one.
What will you do today to create meaning in your own life? Until next week, happy reading.